Hello and welcome to the first episode of my open journal. It's Mike's open journal. Thanks very much for tuning in. Some of you may have listened to the pilot episode that was previously posted. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an introduction, but for those new listeners, I'll go over that again. So my name is Mike, and this is my open journal where I'm going to talk about my own thoughts, feelings and experiences, and hopefully interact with a few of you out there as well. The reason for me putting this podcast together is really following on from an online blog that I started a few months ago. I found it a really positive experience and had a chance to talk about my own experiences. The reason I'd started that blog post was because of my own experience with depression and thoughts of self-harm. And having the opportunity to really talk about what I was going through, the struggles that I was having at the time, and really having the opportunity just to get those thoughts down on paper was a hugely beneficial experience. It just made, I wouldn't say it made it easier, but it was just a chance to get some of those thoughts, those feelings onto paper and out of my head, and was just really beneficial at the time. I really enjoy writing. I found it, like I say, very, therapeutic. It's a good opportunity just to get some of those things down and help to sort of move past those. But what I found more recently is that I actually interact better, I think, with some of the audio support that's available online. I really enjoy listening to podcasts, whether that's about health or something a bit more interesting and fun. So I enjoy listening to football and wrestling podcasts, and occasionally some short comedy podcasts as well. So I think for me it's just an opportunity to try a different medium, and see how that goes. I don't profess to being an expert at any of the things that I'm really talking about. I think with regards to mental health, it comes from having experienced those, or experienced what I have myself. It doesn't come from being a professional, have any training or qualifications or anything like that. It's just from being someone that has experienced, as I said, that the thoughts and feelings that come with depression, and thoughts around self-harm as well. I think I've engaged with some really useful and beneficial material, resources and support myself, and I think having the opportunity to talk about some of those, and hopefully if I'm able to point one person towards some material that makes a difference to them, then that's amazing, and that's great news. So I guess that's kind of a little bit of info as to what I'm doing, and maybe why I'm doing it as well. So just to see really how it goes. My own experience, I think, with depression, just to crack straight into my own story, my own experience, I think, probably started around 2 years ago. I'd come back from a year in Australia and had an amazing experience. And as soon as I landed back in the UK, I have to say I was left kind of disappointed to be back. Really would have liked to have stayed longer. And just, I was just really down about being back. Enjoyed the first, week or 2 weeks going around and seeing family and friends. And then, that was done really. Great to see you, and kind of want to go back now. So it was nice to see people, but it didn't really play down the fact that I still had a real kind of longing to be somewhere else, I guess. Having initially returned, I really struggled to find work in the field that I wanted to be in. So that, I think, probably led to sort of more of a feeling of sort of low self-worth, struggling with, I guess, like, on one hand being very set, like these are the kinds of jobs that I want, this is the kind of industry I want to be in, but then also realising that I wasn't being successful in some of those applications, or there wasn't the right job to apply for. At some stage just becomes a very negative experience. After a short amount of time, though, I was actually able to find employment in my chosen field, which was great. So I think my mood, my general feeling, health, wellness, I guess, improved. There was quite a lot of driving with that job, but it wasn't a huge issue. I really enjoyed it. I was gradually making friends there, so everything was going well. However, after a short amount of time within that new job, my wife left me, and at the time, like, it was a big surprise to me, and was something I really struggled with. I mean, I carried on as much as I could. I think I tried to just have, I guess, one of those, in brackets, normal lives, normal days. So after having a conversation one night where it was made quite clear that she was leaving, I just went back into work the next day and eventually sort of broke down and was sent home, but went back into work the next day. So really didn't have any time off to process what was the end of an 8-year relationship. And I think that struggle to sort of maintain not just a professional appearance and life, but also just like a regular personal one as well, I think meant that I hid what I was going through from other people, and in doing so I probably hid it from myself as well. And it's still quite hard to talk about because it's such a massive shift in your life, and when it's somebody that you've been in a relationship for a long time, someone that you've been so close to, I believe that she's made the right decision for her, and that's great and that's fine. But it still leaves that effect on you, that the person that you trusted the most, that was closest to you, can just cut you out. Great if that's the best thing for them, but if it's not the best thing for you, or it's not something that you're expecting, then that's really difficult to deal with. And I think that's one thing that's probably followed through with regards to being able to sort of trust and connect with people. It does make it more difficult, and you don't always realise it at the time. It's sort of when you look back and reflect on conversations or relationships with people since then, you try not to overinvest. And I guess that is because of a fear of maybe rejection at a later stage. So following on from that, I became really close with a couple of people that I was working with in this new role. But having gone from being a 2-person income household, I really needed to make a few adjustments, which I managed to make, but I found an opportunity where I could actually increase my salary quite a lot. So I took a short-term position with a greater salary, which was an amazing experience. And although I was really sad to leave the job I had, having had 2 great jobs definitely boosted my confidence with my professional work. It gave me something to focus on, because both times I was obviously new into positions. So that was really great in terms of having something to sort of work on and think about, and was a really good experience. However, it did lead to the fact that that new job was a short-term contract, and so I knew it wasn't going to be, or I had an idea that it could not be permanent, or not be long-standing, which it turned out to be. So you do get into a situation where you're moving quite constantly, which maybe on one hand is quite good, but then when I look back at some of those relationships where you think, oh, you're not sort of investing a lot of time. You're trying not to be too committed with people. That I think that also has reflected in some of the professional work I've had, whether it's been through kind of coincidence or situation. I think there is that level of appeal to something that is short term, because I can see that it gives me a chance to try something new and see what it's like there, which is something, again, I think is a positive experience at the moment, because it gives me that opportunity to experience different places, different working environments, and slightly different job roles as well. But at some stage you need to find something where you can sort of settle down, progress, and be happy somewhere, so that so you can just make friends at work. Like I would say, I've got colleagues and acquaintances, but I don't know that I'm really making friends. And I think that's because you don't have that sort of buy-in to the place that you're at always. And you don't always have sort of the engagement that's going on unless you're, I don't know, in a really tight team, or you live locally maybe. Maybe that's a slightly different situation, I'm not sure. I think I've got a bit distracted there. So yeah, professionally there was obviously a lot of ups and downs. And after the summer with that new short-term contract, things started to change a little bit. I had a gap between employers. Again, not a huge gap, but there was a slight gap. And I think just generally, maybe a few things sort of happened. The summer had been really great, but then after that, my mood just, I guess it must have shifted. And around October time, I became very depressed. My mood was really low. I struggled with motivation. I just had a lot of feelings of low self-worth. I started to have a lot of depressive thoughts of self-harm, and suicidal thoughts as well. I think that's a really hard thing just to say out loud. I think that's why I found writing a blog up until now easier, because it feels a bit more sort of personal and private. Sort of I'm just writing it down for me. And then kind of the nervous thing is when you go to post it online, if you choose to do that, which I have done with a few of my posts. But in the moment, just writing it down still feels it feels raw, but it still feels personal and private. It doesn't feel like you're putting it out there. And it has been a great way to actually tell people and friends about what's really going on and how I'm really feeling, because I get a chance to sort of tell them without really telling them. And I've had some great messages and conversations with friends that have read what I've posted online. And I think it has really, I guess, opened up that conversation, and sort of it brings it up. So if we go out to meet up, I don't have to feel awkward and like, oh, should I tell them this or should I tell them that? Like they've let me know beforehand that they've read something or that they know, and then we can just talk openly and honestly about stuff, because that first bit is the most difficult, I think, or it's what I find. It's kind of introducing the subject. And I think it's one of those things as well where, like, I guess the natural time to sort of, you're looking for a natural opportunity to bring it up. And really that is when people ask, how are you doing, or how are things? But how often do people use that as like a greeting, like a hello? And sometimes it's not really like part of a conversation, it's just in passing. If it's part of a conversation, it could be like the first thing they say, and is the first thing you say really going to be, oh, like I've been really depressed, like I sit at home crying and thinking about cutting myself? I don't think that's going to be the way that you start up a conversation. So yeah, I think it's just getting used to it, and and finding out what works for you. And I think for me that was writing about it, and that definitely helped. But I didn't find that straight away. And I found that really around that sort of October time that I was only really, or I had only really spoken to one person about my separation previously, and I felt like I'd got past that. Like, I felt like that wasn't an issue anymore. I felt like the coming back from Australia and initially not finding work, I felt like I'd got past that. So whether those things lay dormant and unresolved and now had crept up on me, that's possible. Or maybe it's just for no particular reason, it's just an imbalance in my head. It could be that. And I guess I probably hope for that more, because I do feel like those other things were kind of resolved for me. And the thought that they could still be affecting me after that is obviously quite a negative thought. That might sound strange to say. I'd rather have it be an unknown than a known. But yeah, like I say, I feel like I've moved past those things. And that I'm like a different person now. So I think that the issues or problems that I may have now are my issues and my problems, and not part of that previous life that I feel like I've sort of progressed or moved away from. Wow, I said progressed. That sounds really cool now. Progressed is definitely a positive word and not one I thought I'd say in relation to that. So leading through that time, I had thoughts of self-harm and suicidal thoughts, but hadn't acted on anything. And then I think around late November time was the first and only time that I've put a knife to my wrist. I didn't cut, but the intention was there, and it suddenly became very real. All the thoughts and feelings that I'd previously had were now taking action, and that was horrifically scary. In that moment, I can't really remember sort of what was going through my head or what was happening. I just remember being very emotional and very confused, and having the knife on my wrist. And then one of my cats walked past, and it just shifted my thinking. Not sure why. Maybe it's a carer instinct, I'm not sure. But it just shifted me. And put the knife away. I went upstairs and I cradled my wrist and cried and fell asleep. And it was quite soon after that I booked my first GP appointment for, I think, about 16 years. And I think for me that was a really big step in sort of giving recognition to what I was going through. And it was great to sort of do a few sort of searches online and get some information and material and support, but actually making that GP appointment made it more real for me. It gave me, it proved to me like I had recognition for myself, that I recognised what was going on, and also that I had the confidence to come forward and say, actually, I'm not okay. There's an issue. I don't know how to deal with it, and I need help. And that was a huge step. Through that, I was advised onto iTalk support, and to be prescribed citalopram. Initially, I was really against having any antidepressants or medication. I just really didn't like the idea of being dependent on something. I'm not really a big drug taker. Like, paracetamol is pretty much the strongest stuff I have, and I don't take that very often, so that usually knocks me out for the night when I take that. So the idea of kind of being dependent on something, especially a mood enhancer, just didn't really sit right with me. But I took the medication, and I felt, well, I picked up the prescription and put it in the cupboard, and I felt like just knowing it was there was enough for me. And I thought, oh, if I get worse, I can always start taking it then. Even though I knew it would take a couple of weeks to take effect, I thought, oh, maybe I've been to the GPs now. I felt a lot better a couple of days afterwards, because I kind of felt quite positive about the fact that I'd gone to the doctors and I'd taken action. So I didn't take the medication straight away, and I'd gone on to check for eye talk, and had set up an assessment for, I think the assessment was a little bit of a wait, so it might have been, I think because I was getting in contact just before Christmas, so I think my wait was probably something like 6 weeks for an assessment. So I'd booked that in, and again, something that I'd felt positive about at the time. Then Christmas was coming up, and I knew it was going to be a very difficult period, and I'd spoken to a couple of friends about the medication, and some friends that have previously taken citalopram or something similar had mentioned that the first couple of days it can really knock you. So I decided to try and sort of pull it off until a weekend. And then it was the last couple of weeks at work until Christmas. So I thought, oh, maybe if I can make it to that last week, and I haven't made it to that last week, I thought, oh, maybe if I wait until we sort of finish for the holidays, and then made it that far. And then kind of thought, wow, you know what? Like I've made it a couple of weeks now. I still don't feel great, but I feel like I can carry on. Christmas was definitely a really low time for me. But my thoughts were very negative and very dark at that time. And looking back, that was a time when I really should have started to take the citalopram, but I didn't. Christmas morning was really nice. I went down to Bournemouth Beach, had a lovely morning, and then the afternoon was really difficult because it was very family orientated, which I found just ridiculously difficult. That was followed by just a couple of really difficult days. And then at New Year, I had a particularly bad episode, just craziness, which because of that, and I may talk about that at another time, I've spoken about it in my blogs, but I don't think I'll go into it in this podcast. That was a time that I decided, hang on, everything is not okay, you are not okay, you need to start taking the citalopram. So I started taking the citalopram from, I think it's the 2nd or the 3rd, I think it's the 2nd of January. And I was on a dosage of 20 milligrams. I found that really helped with lowering the intensity of my negative thoughts, but it didn't help with the frequency. I didn't really have any major side effects. The first week, I felt physically sick every morning, but I wasn't actually sick. I was quite lethargic, but also felt really tired, but nothing too bad. After about, I think, 10 or 12 weeks, my dosage was increased to 40 milligrams. That's definitely helped reduce the frequency of my negative thoughts. I think the higher dosage has also increased the fact that citalopram does make it quite difficult for me to concentrate on certain things. So when I'm at work, I do need to take sort of regular short breaks. even if it's just sort of a couple of minutes. I just can't concentrate for long periods of time on one thing, which has definitely affected, I think, some of the work I do with regards to sort of having to sort of remanage my own time. I've also found that I need to organise my own time a lot more and have things kind of booked in and planned. And if I don't have that, I just won't do anything. Like I'm not happy about it, but I'll quite happily just come home and sit down for sort of 15 minutes, do dinner, eat that, and go to bed. But if I've got something planned in, I'll do it. Not every time, just because sometimes I do get sort of those negative thoughts and I have to sort of pull out of certain things. But most of the time, if it's planned in and I've got that commitment to do it, I'll sort of push myself to go. So I think, I don't know, that's maybe sort of increased something that I might have done to some extent previously. Although I think before I would have been a lot more up for kind of doing things last minute, which I just feel like now, okay, I might do them, but I feel like that's less likely to happen. So all in all, I think having taken the citalopram that I didn't want to take in the first place has been beneficial for me. It has helped. I think, as I said, that the blogging has helped. Just sort of writing things down has been very beneficial. But I also find that I sometimes sort of put that off a little bit. And I'm hoping that by trying something else, trying a different medium, that it opens up another way for me to talk about my own experiences and hopefully makes it easier for me to deal with that. And again, maybe help somebody else as well. I also think this is a great way to interact with other people and have a chance to talk about their own experiences as well. I've met some great people online who have started up blogs, YouTube channels, and their own podcasts as well. So I think it's a great opportunity just to connect with other people. Technology-wise, I think I'm going to have to learn a lot more about this podcasting before I'm able to connect with anyone else in that way. It's taken me a little while to work out how to actually get all this stuff together. I love technology, but I wouldn't say I'm very good at it. So it's very much a Google, YouTube teaching session that goes on here. So I guess that's a little bit about my story. It's not an inclusive story. There's definitely stuff I've sort of missed out or skimmed over, but it gives you a rough overview. And I think in the first episode, just to give you a little bit of an idea about who I am, some of the stuff I've been through, gives you a bit of a setting for some of the stuff that I could be talking about in the future. As I said, it's not all going to be mental health and, for me, depression, but will involve some other topics of things that are going on or that there's particular interest in. Through some of the previous work I've done, I've worked a lot within colleges and universities, so I'm aware of things like LGBT societies and the work that goes on within them and how that can fit into mental health as well. I think that'd be a really interesting conversation to be able to have. And myself, obviously, just to know a little bit more about some of the other things that are affecting different people and have a greater understanding of the experiences and the lives of some of the people that I've spoken to, what affects them and what their story is, and be able to connect in, I guess, a better way than short Twitter messages or YouTube comments and things like that. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of it for the first episode. Thanks very much for listening. Hopefully get to post again soon. Look forward to any comments or feedback that you guys might have. And hopefully connecting with you in some way in the future. If you want to contact me, best place to do that will be on Twitter, where I am Mike_Douglas_. So hit me up there and leave me a comment. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you, hearing you, talking to you, and being there to support you. Remember, you're not alone out there. We're all fighting the battle together. Thanks very much for listening to My Open Journal, episode 1. Talk to you soon.